Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. My name is Alexa, and I'm on the events team here at Books Are Magic. We're so excited to have Jamie Hood and Rax King to celebrate the launch of Rax's book, Sloppy. Before we get started, I just want to point out a couple of things for how tonight's event's going to go. First, I want to thank St. Agrestis for providing the free refreshments. There's some phony Negronis at the front. If you didn't see that on your way in, you can see that on your way out. We'll be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of the discussion, so you can start thinking of some good questions now. And then after the talk tonight, Rax will be signing and personalizing books near the table where y'all checked in, and we will let you know where that is and how to line up towards the end. And if you're joining us on the YouTube live stream, please buy a copy from the link in the description box below. All right, with Rax King's trademark blend of irreverent humor and heartfelt honesty comes a new collection of personal essays that unpack bad behavior. Sloppy explores sobriety, begrudging self-improvement, and the habits we cling to with clenched fists. Rax King is the James Beard Award-nominated author of Tacky and co-host of the podcast Low Culture Boil. Her writing can be found in Glamour, Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, and elsewhere. She lives in Brooklyn with her husband and toothless Pekingese. Jamie Hood is the author of, most recently, Trauma Plot, A Life, the hybrid pandemic diary called How to Be a Good Girl, and Regards, Marcel, a monthly newsletter on Proust and other miscellany. She lives in Brooklyn. All right, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Rax and Jamie.
Oh my goodness. Hi, everybody. This is so exciting. I see so many people I love and also some people I don't actually know, which is great because it's like not just my friends and loved ones here. I'm going to read a little bit. I'm going to read from an essay about going to the mental hospital, but like in a cool and funny way. Yeah, cheers for the mental hospital. At the place, I yawned and fidgeted my way through intake. It was 2:30 a.m., and I asked the intake staff member whether we might be able to finish in the morning so I could get some sleep. The tone of her response heavily implied that I should have thought about that before I tried to kill myself. Finally, she led me to my room, which had no lock and no doorknob, and, I soon learned, no darkness. Every half hour, a nurse opened the door, flooding the room with light while she made sure I wasn't dead. Then she'd leave, and I'd try to conk out before she came back, chronically suspended in the last heavy limbo before sleep. I met my fellow patients for the first time at breakfast, which at the place was mandatory and at 6:30 a.m. I thought longingly of my lazy sleepings in at home as I scanned the tables for somewhere to sit. One girl saw me looking and blocked the spot next to her with her tray. How was it possible that even here there were cool kids? That's when I realized something distressing. Because the place treated both drug addictions and mental disorders, its patients were tacitly divided into groups of junkies and crazies. I examined my cohort through sticky day-old contact lenses. The junkies were better looking. They weren't being prescribed antipsychotics that made them break out. They sucked and sucked at their nicotine inhalers, which didn't look quite as cool as cigarettes, but in this context, we all had to take what we could get. I mimicked their bored facial expressions, hoping they'd adopt me. A nurse tapped my shoulder. "Blood," she said. "Blood," I agreed. "Gotta take your blood now," she said, "before you eat any breakfast." Well, fair enough, but did she have to do it right there? The junkies watched from their table with disgust as the nurse siphoned my blood, telling me an unsettling number of times that with God's help she was gonna make me well. It was mortifying, like when your mom licks her finger and rubs dirt off your face in front of your friends. Was it maybe, on some level, a relief that I could still feel embarrassed by stuff like this? Could it be a sign that my brain was ready to give up its prima donna act and get back to the business of everyday life? No, it was just embarrassing, on top of every other damn thing. I made no headway with the junkies that morning, but at lunch, I managed to become fast friends, as I've done in every setting for my entire adult life, with a heavily tattooed gay guy. Kieran straddled the border of junkie and crazy just like I did, was as determined to make the place slide off his back as I was. He collapsed onto the empty bench next to me with a dramatic sigh, rescuing me from a second meal alone. "You're staring at my hair," he said by way of introduction, covering his dark roots with a protective hand. I assured him that I wasn't. I wished to Christ I'd had the presence of mind to bleach this absolute mess before getting myself locked up in here. Maybe they have Sharpies, I offered. If you can't bleach the roots, darken the rest. Mrs. Thinking outside the box. I like that in a woman. Friendships in a place are weird, too deep and too shallow all at once. You already know one incredibly heavy detail about the person picking at their pudding next to you, and they know you know, on top of which they know the same thing about you, but neither of you can acknowledge it. In a place, as in prison, it's pretty gauche to ask your comrades what they're in for. So you keep conversation on a vapid plane and hope the good stuff comes out on its own. The vibe is like speed dating in Jonestown, or doing a fun icebreaker exercise with the hostages during a bank robbery. Hospital life. There was TV, always tuned to what appeared to be the Maury Povich channel. A blackboard outside the TV room tantalized us all with its claim that a showing of Varsity Blues would happen here soon, though no date was specified, and one of the junkies who was on the ward for the second time that year said the same blackboard had promised the same showing of Varsity Blues 6 months ago. We latched onto this. We grew desperate for Varsity Blues. Those of us who'd seen it wrote checks on its behalf that it could never hope to cash. It was legendary. It was crucial. It was a tentpole of 90s cinema. We were being robbed. How could our treatment hope to progress under such deprived conditions? Sidebar. This happened 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. And every time I read that out loud, I get as angry and upset as the day that it happened. How hard would it have, whatever. Coloring was, by far and for lack of any better alternatives, the most popular activity in the place. As a kid, I remember liking to color. What a fool I was. It turns out coloring is the worst thing in the world. Diligently shading in pictures of Disney princesses with crayons at the age of 21 makes you feel like a spooky weirdo, on top of which I was bad at it, too sad and fuzzy-brained to produce a halfway decent picture. You can't imagine the shame of being a shitty colorer in a place where there's nothing to do but color. I peeked at my fellow patients' projects with envy. The junkies were better at coloring than the crazies, broadly speaking, but the crazies were more enthusiastic. I wasn't the only one disillusioned with the one activity that was reliably on offer at the place. The ward was full of people coloring with total focus for 45 seconds at a time before sneaking their pages back into the stack and staring off into space instead. The most common expression on the face of someone returning to their seat from the stack of coloring books was one of supreme dissatisfaction. Residents who'd done time in other places spoke longingly of this or that mental health elysium, where fresh coloring books arrived by the truckload every morning, still warm from the printer. Other institutions had drama clubs and aromatherapy chambers. Their cafeterias were catered by Wolfgang Puck. They showed Varsity Blues 3 times a week. No, 3 times a day. You might think it's not possible to cry because you hate coloring so much. But one thing I learned at the place was that it's possible to cry for any reason, and no reason, and all day long, and for a week straight. I learned about an obscure feeling that isn't sorrow or misery. There is an emotion called crying, and it was made for places like this. I knew, based on the conditions of my life and where they had led me, that I was unhappy, but I'd exhausted my ability to feel it. I cried without knowing why, and I cried when I remembered why, and then I cried about what a crybaby I was. Sadness needs characters and a plot. Crying, I learned, needs only a vacuum to fill. I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Lex. Also, for the people standing in the back, we've got 4 seats up here. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, we don't bite.
Well, I don't know about that. But
We won't bite you.
Yeah, we won't bite you. Thank you so much for this, and congratulations. This is so exciting. And Safi is such a wonderful book. I wonder how you're feeling. This is the first day, so we all have to do a lot of clapping for Rex. Actually, let's do one more right now.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I wasn't going to be the one, but I do expect you guys to clap so much more than it's going to feel natural. Yeah. Thank you, David. All right. How am I feeling? I feel so normal. I'm having all kinds of normal feelings right now. I
Sure.
definitely am not spinning out and just like numb and also so excited and also like I want to go to bed for a week. Like none of that. It's all normal.
Okay, well, great.
Yeah. Thank you.
I kind of wanted to start somewhere else, but maybe what I'll do, considering what we just heard, is ask you about the use of humor in your writing and how, you know, how to bring that into something like a psych ward or a suicide attempt.
I mean, I'm someone who like I have always been extremely sensitive. Actually, I'm just a massive titty baby, like about everything. And historically that has meant that I kind of have a hard time laughing at myself. Like I really don't like when other people laugh at me. That, you know, I can hide it now, but when I was a little kid, I was real self-serious about it. And it's like hard for me to go through something unpleasant or embarrassing or in some way negative and make my little jokes about it. And so it ends up feeling like very important, actually, to tackle stressful events with a sense of humor. I mean, it's like, it's soothing for me and it helps me to get my head on straight. And I do feel there's something about like turning something horrible into a series of one-liners that helps me to metabolize the awfulness of the experience. Like there are people who say, you know, it's easy to just default to making the easy joke or whatever, but for me, it's not easy. It feels kind of unnatural to laugh at myself, and that's why I am hell-bent on doing it as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, there's a fruit fly.
There really is. I know. He was on my book for a while.
No, this is great. And maybe I'll start back with the broader question, which is just sort of writing. Like, let's start there. No, but like this could be an origin story sort of question, and we can tie back into the humor. Also, we know you're a titty baby because that's how you ended the excerpt. But I'm curious maybe about what writing sort of brings into your life, and maybe also what you feel is the value of giving it to others.
I mean, I've always written, like, since I was old enough to read and write. That's been what I do with myself. My mom has all kinds of really cute stories that she used to tell my boyfriends and humiliate me. Like, I was really little and I wrote a short story. It was like about princesses, probably. And at some other point, I just produced a packet of like a bunch of poems, and I think I was 9 years old. And so it's always like, it's been this urge that I've always had. And I never thought that I'd be able to make it into a career. I always wanted to write books, but I, graduated college into a really hostile ecosystem for that sort of thing. It was like contracting opportunities, and there was just less money available, and I didn't think any of it was going to go to me ever. And so, writing is something that I'm always going to do. If AI takes it away from me, then so be it. I'm always going to do it. And being able to do it for work, being able to like write books and read them out loud to rooms full of people it's like so boring when famous people talk like this, like, I'm so grateful and it's such a head trip. But I am so grateful, and it really is a head trip.
Let's talk sloppy. I want to know. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to back up actually. So I think the first I heard of this book was maybe like 3 years ago. We went on a writing retreat. Do you remember that?
Right, I do. It was 3 years. I had just quit drinking like a month before.
Yeah, it was like a sober writing retreat, and I was kind of surprised when I showed up. I was like, oh, okay, and it was great. Of course, it was great. But yeah, at the time, I recall that it was going to be a memoir, an addiction memoir. And I feel like you were maybe reading something of Leslie Jamison's.
I was.
Okay.
I was reading The Recovering. I've
do
read it
have a
like 4
memory.
times now. Yeah, you remember all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about was sort of how you're such a master of the personal essay. How did you shift gears? Maybe first, like, how did it begin as an addiction memoir, and what sort of compelled you to shift the form into a collection of essays?
So I think if I've got my timing straight, when we went on that retreat, again, I had quit drinking like a month before. And when you quit drinking 1 month ago, it's all you can think about. Like all of your energy is focused on just seething and being pissed off that you like had to quit this thing that you loved so much. And I was very much in that mode. And I
You
think
were really fun on the trip. I don't know.
that is shocking to hear,
I
because
had a
my
great time.
memory of that trip is like very much I was in my head. I was a bitch to everyone. So I'm glad that, no one else remembers it that way. But at that point, I think the first thing that I wrote that ended up going into Sloppy was from an essay that's in here called Proud Alcoholic Stock. And it's about, both my parents were in recovery programs, raising me, and just what it was like to grow up in a devotedly sober environment and then begin drinking and drugging anyway. And in that essay, like I reread it now, and I'm just like, damn, bitch, like take it easy. You are so upset at the world right now. But that's sort of how the pivoting began. It was like the things that I wanted to write about, I felt were best digested in essay length chunks and like essay length themes as well.
Mhm.
And I ended up pivoting from just writing about addiction because it was starting to feel like I'd boxed myself into a corner. Like writing about addiction, once you are no longer in it actively, there's this really natural arc that you are tempted to take at every turn. Like, here's how it was, and here's a couple, extra splashy stories from how it was, and then I quit, and here's what I'm like now. And it just got pretty boring after a while. Like, here's how it was with cocaine. Here's how it was with heroin. Here's how it was. Like, okay, we get it. And so it seemed like there was something else at play in my character, like in my personality, that was more interesting than just like a drug swooped down on me from above and ruined my life. And now it's gone and I feel great. Because that really wasn't the reality. The reality was I am actually a pretty fucked up person and I have all kinds of defects and deficiencies and like personality diseases, and they don't go away just because I quit drinking. Like quitting drinking was the solving of a specific problem, and now here all my other problems are. And that ended up being a much more interesting perspective to write from for me. It was more interesting to me to like tackle a bunch of different sides of my deficiencies as a person, and not just within the boundaries of addiction, because addiction informed a lot of my problems, but it wasn't the only one that I had.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very funny to be in this moment with you right now, because at the time I was working on Trauma Plot, and I was also doing something, feeling very caged in by the rape memoir as a sort of conventional narrative. And it's just interesting for both of us to come out on the other side, having written very strange versions of these books. I wonder if you could talk, obviously the titular essay of the book is Sloppy. I don't know why I always say it like that. It's because of Lady Bird, when it's like so the titular essay of I can't say it normal now, I'm sorry, of the book is Sloppy. And I think there's sort of a clear thesis in it, but I wonder if you could talk about sloppiness and like, is it a style of being? Is it an affect? Is it a relation to authority? Like, how did that become a sort of unifying like framework for the book?
All right, welcome to what is now my therapy session, everybody. Y'all didn't think you were participating in this. Yeah, the book is called Sloppy. And in that essay, the titular essay of the bunch, I talk about how that word has just like followed me around, which it has. I mean, where it originally comes from in my life, the foundational sloppiness, is that I was a bad student. I didn't seem like a bad student because I was quiet and well behaved, but like to this day, put long division in front of me, it is not happening. Like, gun to my head, do this long division problem, tell my mother I love her. I'm sorry, it's not happening. And, point being, school was like this site of sloppiness for me. It was where my efforts weren't good enough and I didn't really know what to do except an English class, and that kind of got me through. And, you graduate school, and one good thing about graduating school, no one can demand that you do long division anymore. You can say no to that. But all kinds of other sloppinesses started to, announce themselves. And okay, I was a sloppy student, and I guess that's behind me, but I'm also like a slob as a friend. I forget everyone's birthday. I never reach out first. I have a chip on my shoulder when I feel like people aren't talking about me. I'm a slob of a, girlfriend and wife. I mean, I think I'm a good wife now. My husband's here. He can attest. But at the time, I've been married once before. I was not a good wife then. And it's just, all of who I am. There's this side of me that is capable of doing things more or less. And there's this really seductive side of me that just wants to like pass out on the sofa wearing a dirty pair of boxers, just like garbage on the TV that I'm not actually watching, double fisting Cheez-Its, just like a disgustoid. And the slob in me, like, I have to stop her from taking the wheel. I have to stop that from happening at every turn. And so I guess that essay is me grappling with that sloppiness, in one particular sector of my life, the student sector, but it's everywhere. Like, I think I'd talk about it there too. I'm a mess all over, and that's just something I gotta contend with. I think I'm gonna be saying that a lot tonight. Like, I'm a fuck up because I have to contend with it, and then that's gonna be the takeaway. But it's true.
Yeah, there was an image in Proud Alcoholic Stock that I really loved, the party golem. If you want to talk a little bit about that. Also, I should say something funny. I don't know if it's okay for me to say this, but we met each other when we were like at the height of our party girl eras. Like, we were fucked up, we were messes, and I'm really glad we're both not in there. We've conquered the party golem.
We made it.
Yeah.
But
I don't know if you want to talk about that image for a second.
Yeah, totally. Party golem. Y'all know Judaism.
Heard of it.
Yeah. Judaism, the thing that I have. Party golem it felt like a really handy way to offload responsibility for my party behavior, like the stuff that I did in a blackout. Yes, I had done it, but it was stuff I would not have done sober, mostly. I had to offload the action onto someone that I could blame, and so I kind of felt, as many addicts do, that there was this separate person inside of me, like the little cartoon devil sitting on the shoulder telling me what to do. And if I was in a blackout, that person could take the wheel and just ruin my life and my relationships and spend all my money and pass out on the sidewalk in front of my apartment building because I couldn't find my keys, which happened more than once, and I still didn't quit drinking. It began to feel like it's a form of dissociation, which I think a lot of like really heavy party people have to find. They have to find someone to blame, whether it's like some alter ego or someone that they do drugs with, like they're the bad influence, the person who sells them drugs. I tried that angle for a while. There's always some external force that's doing the bad stuff for me. And, one of the things about quitting drinking, I can't blame my shit on the party golem anymore because I'm sober. And when I do something fucked up, it's because I'm kind of fucked up.
Yeah, I mean, I like also that the thing that you close that essay with is a sort of recognition that the party golem is still sort of inside of you. Like, it's not exiled. It's not actually an alter ego. It's a part of you that you have to like sort of reckon with and sit with. And I don't know, maybe it felt a little emblematic as well because there's so much of that kind of dissociative or general sort of like sense of splitting. I'm even thinking about your essay, oh my God, the Temple of
Feminine Perfection.
Yes.
Yeah, the strip club.
It's great. And like, it was so interesting because in that you talk about the sort of sexual personae that women take on. And I was really impressed by it, partly because it felt very similar to my sense of sex work, which was that actually it was quite liberating for me, and sort of you talk about Lola as this other alter ego that you took on who was able to sort of be socially charismatic and to be authoritative over men and to make money and to be, sort of seamless in how you navigated the world. And so I don't know, I guess part of it was also an interest in the fact that like this splitting is sometimes a way that women sort of make the suffering of, enduring misogyny a little easier.
Yeah, I think that, you've written about this really elegantly as well. Like, we live in a society, to be a woman under these conditions, like, that splitting is really self-protective in a lot of ways. And I am grateful for being able to do it in situations that, like, if I had been experiencing them fully conscious with my unsplit self, they would have broken me. And so I think there can be something really useful about being able to split, especially at work. Oh my God, like a big part of why I struggled to find my footing in strip clubs at first is that I wasn't splitting. I was like in there hard on sleeve, like actually trying to find men that might want to hang out with me, like incredibly grim behavior. And the way to make that job work and the way to actually make money, and the reason I don't have student loans now, is like I needed to get a persona into the mix, not a party golem necessarily, just someone who could like boss men around. And she's still in here, as again my husband can attest. I'm gonna stop calling you out, Sean. I'm sorry. I'm nervous.
No, I liked it too. Not to like belabor talking about myself, but for me, something that was really fascinating about escorting was that it kind of triggered the same like part of my brain that takes me to writing. You know, it's also about storytelling. And so that was something that I was thinking about with that essay, is like, how do sexual personae also sort of like lead women to writing in some way?
I mean, it's like, it was very creative in those clubs. Like, I don't know if this is true for you. I used to lie to those men like that was my job. Like that was the thing I was getting paid for. Something that I hope nobody in here ever does. If you go to a strip club, you don't look like an especially, strip clubby crowd, but I'm going to say it anyway. Never ask the stripper her real name. But people would ask me, and so I had come up with a fake real name that I would tell them, and then we were like off to the races, because that bitch had a whole life that had nothing to do with me, and it was fun, and it was creative, and it was legitimately generative in a way. I mean, the way that playing pretend is generative for a little kid.
Totally. I just want to say, I believe some of you have been to a strip club before. Yeah, maybe we could also sort of segue there into service work, because that's something that, we also both have thought a lot about. And there's a connection between sex work and service work, but I'm also just curious about you writing about being front of house, and and you point out in the essay that doesn't happen so often. And I totally agree. I feel like there's a real dearth of front of house writing.
Yeah, I think, we live in a time of a lot of curiosity about cooking professionally. Like Food Network, right, has been a major cultural force for probably about 20 years now. Iron Chef and Chopped and things like that make cooking seem, athletic and artful, instead of just like some boring shit you have to do to make your son have nutrition in him. So, there's this curiosity about cooking professionally that is not really matched by a curiosity about serving food professionally and other types of front of house work, like being a bartender, which I know is a job you've done for a very long time now. And I went into writing that essay like really curious why people don't care about what goes on in the front of house the way they do with what goes on in the back of house. And I think that I don't have any one conclusion about that, but I do think people tend to romanticize the backbreaking labor that is cooking professionally. Like there's something kind of sexy to your average, middle class person about a person who is in a sweltering kitchen 14 hours a day, like slaving over a grill. There's something kind of sexy about that. Whereas serving the grilled food to people at a table, like we all have plates at home. We all bring plates to tables at home. It seems like there's not an art to it. And I certainly don't agree that that's the case, but I think that's where the disconnect is cooking is something you can like very condescendingly turn into art in your discourse about it. Waiting tables, not so much.
Yeah, I will say though, I like that you brought up Becca Shaw's piece. Is it Shaw?
I think it's Shoe.
Becca Shu's piece. Titular.
So titular.
Her essay, Bad Waitress, I kind of went really viral, and it made me wonder, like, maybe there is a craving for this kind of writing or this sort of thinking through. But where was I? I had something that I was gonna jump into, but I already lost it. So that's okay.
That's so titular of you.
I know. Sorry. always horrible when you lose your place. You know, you think you're Diane Sawyer, and then you're up here and you're looking at your phone, and suddenly you're not Diane Sawyer.
Oh my God, it's agony. It's agony to lose your place when you're like doing a thing out loud in front of people, like right now.
Yeah. Well, maybe I would ask something. I feel like if it doesn't come up in the audience Q&A, I would be sort of surprised, which is like the question that you always get asked if you write about your life, which is like sort of the ethics of autobiography. And we could talk a little bit about that. But one of the questions that I always sort of wanted to be asked when I was doing events like this, and maybe you would like to be asked, is like, how do we treat ourselves ethically when we're writing about our lives, particularly when we're writing about things like the topics that come up in this book, which are often very difficult. And like I said, you treat very candidly and also humorously and just deftly. But yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process of like figuring out how to be fair to myself and how to be fair to other people. And I think maybe it's you who says like the person in my books who seems like the biggest asshole is me. And in my case, I want that to be the case also. Like, I don't want to tell these stories, many of which are stories of me being like brutally wronged or hurt by other people. But I don't really want that to be the story. I don't want this to be the book about the girl who was wronged a million times and just got her ass kicked every second of the day. That's not an interesting book to me. It's interesting to me to be able to look at those situations and account for myself in them and account for like what role I played, which doesn't mean, you know, oh, my ex-husband was abusive towards me because of something about me, but like, there was a dynamic there. There were two people in that relationship, and it was important to me to speak honestly about what that dynamic was and not, you know, hide the parts that made me look bad. And that's my general principle throughout this book and throughout my personal writing is I should have to look bad. If I'm going to make other people look kind of bad, I'm going to look bad. And oftentimes, like there's an essay in here, it's a little more complicated than this, but the upshot of it is that I stole 27 Percocets from a man who thought we were buddies and then like lied about it to him and never came clean to him. And I'm not going to do it now, ever. I've written about it and I'm still not going to do it. I look like a big asshole in that story. And, you know, I need to be okay with that. I need to be okay with like being a character that hopefully you root for, but maybe you don't always like that much. That's fine.
It feels very refreshing, just to be a little cliche about it. I think that we're in a moment that feels so, people feel so inclined to sort of dig in when they're wrong and just try and be incredibly defensive about it. And it's something I love about your writing, that clarity of the gradation of morality and dynamics with other people. Also, for the record, I don't think I'm the worst person in my book.
You must not have been the one to say that. As I was saying that to you, you were like,
cunt or whatever. Like, not always. Tell me a little bit about the difference between this and Tacky. Like, what was the writing process like? How did the publication process feel different? Did it feel sort of parallel?
Well, you have alluded to this already, so I guess this is on the table. One big difference between writing this book and writing Tacky is that I had not quit anything when I wrote Tacky, and the very liquor and cocaine that I have quit by the time this book is happening played a key part of my process writing the other one. It was really pathetic, you guys. I would like get the cheapest hotel room I could find, like no more than $80 a night, which meant going, you know, in the middle of nowhere, and I'd take my little 8-ball with me and I'd buy, again, the cheapest bourbon I could find, and I would just like do shots and then do bumps, like one right after the other, until I was like, oh, I'm in the zone now. And then I would produce unreadable garbage, and like one good paragraph would be in there, and the next day I'd look at what I'd done and be like, this is my process. I'm basically Hemingway. Can't do that anymore. Can't write that way. So in that way, it was incredibly different.
Is it harder?
You know, kind of not, actually. It was harder at first just because I'm a creature of habit. You know, that was just the way I'd always done things. But it turns out it's way easier to write well when you aren't having to like delete 90% of the coked up bluster that is in your little Google Doc. Made it much easier.
Yeah, I guess we're wrapping it up, but if you want to talk a little bit, I mean, the book sort of ends in a place where you're dealing with the fact that now you have to sit in boredom and also have to sort of sit in like happiness in a way, and to sit with a sunset and be like, I can appreciate a sunset and I don't have to, have all of these other accoutrements to do so. So I'm curious what you feel is coming next. Like, what is something about addiction is that it's like so, yes, it's fast paced, but it's also about stasis and maintaining stasis. And so I'm curious about, I think, both you and I are sort of reckoning with futurity, which is maybe something that we didn't think about for a long time. And so what is futurity, and what does the future sort of look like for Rax King?
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. I'm still really, I want so badly to be able to tell this room full of people, like, I'm so good at being bored now, and I'm in a great mood all the time, and, life is rosy, and the little birds, follow me around singing, like in Snow White and Cinderella. And no, I'm still bored most of the time, and I'm still learning what are some okay ways to manage that other than just like being in a blackout. There, for 15, 16 years, anytime I had any emotion, whether good or bad, I had to drink about it or, do something else about it. I had to, like, my instinct was always to put a substance into myself, like I'm drinking a potion in a video game, and then, experience the thing with that brain instead of my real brain. And I'm still trying to figure out how not to do that. And, when that instinct comes in where I feel itchy and I have to do something, that thing can't be drinking. So oftentimes now it's like working out for a crazy long time until I feel something resembling endorphins, or like I play the banjo now. Like, that's a thing I can do when I'm bored. Then hi. And, stuff like that. It's very much been a process of finding ways to plug that hole that aren't destructive. And I guess moving forward, I would love for the next step to be like not feeling like I have a hole to be plugged. I really could have found a better metaphor for that. Not feeling like I always have to be doing something about my mental state, and being able to sit with it and not miss the constant tinkering that I was doing before.
Thank you so much. We'll gossip about our yoga studio after this, but
cool.
Let's give a round of applause to Rax. And I think we have some time for questions, so I hope you thought about them. Yes, hi.
I'm curious about community and how that may or may not have shifted throughout both those books, and how that affected any clarity when you were writing about it.
Yeah, the question is about community, and about what my experience of community was like in writing these two books. And in writing the first one, I was going out like all the time, so it's weird to reflect that I felt this way. I was so lonely, and I didn't feel like anyone actually knew me, and I didn't feel like I knew anyone. And so, I did have friends who were writers whose work I really admired, but I couldn't be real with them. Like, I would send them drafts and ask for feedback, but, preening and trying to get them to think I was cool the whole time, which is not a great way to engage with feedback. And so at this point, I just have so much less to hide, and I feel like there aren't as many little casual relationships in my life anymore, but the relationships I do have, they're with people I feel like I really trust, and people I feel, I want what's best for them and they want what's best for me. And so that's been a huge boon to my process. It turns out it's really good for my work to not feel like an outcast all the time.
Josh? You raised your hand, so now you gotta go.
Hi, the book is so wonderful, and congratulations on launch day. And hi, Jamie.
Do I get a hi, Josh?
I think it's one of the things that's so special about this book, I think, is that the way that you attack the main themes through essays, right? Like, it's so beautiful and multifaceted, but they all cohere in a really nice way, even though it isn't, as Jamie said, the traditional like memoir structure with one arc. And And I was just wondering, the stories are so. I'm such a fucking asshole. The stories are so like vividly remembered, and they're so disparate. How do you like collate for sloppiness? Like, how do you think of a story from real life and be like, that means I was sloppy in this way? And how do you, or did you go like, what are times I was sloppy, and then grasp for the past? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I
Okay,
do.
question answered.
Yeah. So for the people who can't hear Josh on the YouTube stream, I do want to say that he said mid-question, "I am such a fucking asshole."
Meant it.
Yeah, and he meant it. And the question was, how do I select for sloppiness? Like, how do I decide what to write about in the vein of sloppiness? And the honest answer, unfortunately, is that there is so much that didn't make it in. Like, it was not hard. It was not hard to like find moments in my life when I was a fucking piece of shit slob. There are so many more than are even in here. There could be like a sloppy 2 and 3 easy.
Anyone else?
Hi. Congrats on the book. A question. So I read an excerpt of your book on the New York Magazine rules. Congratulations. And you talked about shoplifting in it. And I was wondering if, especially when writing this book, did you have any thought towards writing like sloppy behavior that was harmful and sloppy behavior that maybe is frowned upon but is like successful or exciting or freeing? This idea that not everything is good and bad.
Yeah, so the question is, well, it pertains to the essay Shoplifting in Brandy Melville, which did appear on The Cut a few days ago. And the question is, like, as I was working, was I making distinctions between sloppiness that is ugly and destructive versus sloppiness that is basically harmless? And not really. I mean, I don't know that any of this stuff is truly harmless. I do feel like shoplifting from a fast fashion retailer is fine, and I'm certainly not going to stop doing it just because it makes me kind of a dick. But is it harmless? Like, I could really fuck up my life if I get caught. So, you know, not necessarily, and I'm never going to get caught. I'm too good. But I'm too good at it, as evidenced by me talking into a microphone and on a recording about doing it. But like, I think a big part of my quote unquote thesis is that this stuff is never entirely harmless. Like, a lot of it is essentially fine, but none of it's great to do, you know?
I feel like Brandy Melville corporate has you on a list at this point for sure, right? Like...
Yo, they must. There's a profile of me coming out in a couple days, and for it, a journalist like took me to Brandy Melville, and I didn't take anything then because I'm not gonna do that in the newspaper. But I was like showing her how I would like steal a necklace and whatnot, and nobody paid attention. Like, the people working in Brandy Melville are the most stealable from people. They're like. I had like go in there now. Go in there if they're still open after this. Go in there and like take something. It's the easiest thing you're ever gonna do. Trust me. And if you get arrested, we don't know each other. And that's my answer.
I saw someone up here.
Yeah. Hey. Have you found a favorite mocktail since going sober? And if you could talk a bit about what it's like, especially in New York, like still engaging with the going out crowd. I'm sure you still be friends at bars and stuff. Has that been difficult?
Yes. Do I have a favorite mocktail? And is it difficult for me as a sober person hanging out in bars? Favorite mocktail, Shirley Temple. And the delicious phony Negronis that have been provided by St. Agrestes for this event. Shirley Temple, definitely. And do I feel weird going to bars? I did at first. For like the whole first year after I quit drinking, I would still go to bars because that's where my party friends were hanging out, and I wanted to act like nothing had changed. But I was so mad to be there, and I would look around at drunk people and be like, I fucking hate you. I'm gonna beat your ass later for doing nothing, like just being a little loud. And time has helped, you know. At that point, I was newly sober. It's 3 years and change now, and I kind of like, yeah, we can clap again. It had been a while, yeah, thank you. And so I feel fine about it now, and I don't really go to bars just to hang out at bars typically. Like I'll go if there's a show there that I want to see, or I'll go. That's pretty much it. That's why I go. So in that way, like it's fine. And when I see drunk people now, like acting the fool, I don't envy it anymore, and I'm not mad about it. I'm just like, wow, that you're gonna have some text to send tomorrow to the people that you're dealing with now. So, you know, it's just different.
We have three more hands. How many can we take?
Yeah,
Three is good? Okay. You, and then you, and then my lavalier mic just fell off, and then you. Thank you.
Have you done anything since writing this book that you wish you could have included?
Incredibly messy question. Have I done anything since writing this book that I wish I could have included? Yes. End of answer.
I really love Tacky, and I was wondering when you were writing that, or in general when you write about pop culture, do you generally say, I want to write about this moment in my life, how can I relate it to pop culture, or is there pop culture you want to write about first and then you relate it to your own life, or is it some sort of mix of the two?
So I'm going to call you out one more time, Sean. This is something Sean can attest to. There he is. I really latch on to the pop culture that I write about. Like I don't typically write about something that I feel lukewarm about. And we just this past weekend went to see Boogie Nights in theaters. Super fun. Love that movie. But watching it, I felt my little essayist brain turn on, and it was at Nighthawk. You know, that place where they've got the little white pieces of paper and you write your drink order on them. And I was just like scribbling notes to myself that I wish I had them with me now, because like if I read them out loud they would sound just bananas. It's all stuff like, you know, casual sex question mark. And that's, you know, pretty much my process writing about pop culture is something gets stuck in my craw, and writing about it is how I determine, you know, why. And typically the reason is something to do with me personally. And so yeah, that's how the enchilada gets made. Cooper, I saw you.
Hey, how's it going?
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
You talked about this a little bit in process, like in terms of process, but how does putting out a second book frame the way that you think about your first book? And in general, like, do you revisit essays after you publish them, or think about them after?
Do I revisit essays after I publish them? I would pay you $1 million not to have to do that. Like by the time anything of mine gets published, I'm so sick of the sight of it, and I'm like, I would rather die than read this essay again. It's really good, obviously. All my writing is so good, but I just like the amount of time that it takes me, not just to write the thing, but like thinking about it for weeks on end is like really, I mean, it's tiring, and it makes me really sick of, for example, Brandy Melville. Haven't been in there for many months. Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, the other question was...
Just kind of how does putting out a second book reframe the way you look at your first book?
Yeah, how does putting out a second book change how I look at the first one? I guess I kind of thought the first one was a fluke. Like I wrote it, and it mostly came to me fairly easily. I mean, there was stuff in there that took a lot out of me, but it was pretty accessible, most of what's in that first book. And so I thought, well, there's no way I could repeat this process. Like I would have to work so much harder. And as we've established, I don't like to do that. And then, you know, I quit drinking, and that became just the thing I was obsessed with and the thing I had to write about. And so I think that if there's a third book, it's probably going to feel the same way, where like for months, I am not going to want to write anything, and I'm going to feel like I could never do it again. And then something's going to come to me, and I'm going to want to do it again.
Okay.
Was there someone else? Yes.
I'm kind of curious, like how you balance and grapple with, like being accountable and like enjoying self-deprecation and like healing, and using words like, you know, slap me and stuff. I'm a fellow self-deprecator myself, and then also, you know, like these words that a conversation about like recycling terms in general that are used against like marginalized groups and stuff. So yeah, just curious about that.
Yeah, the question is about reclaiming terms that have ugly connotations for members of marginalized groups. In this case, being a slob definitely has not a great connotation if you're a woman. It's not great for anybody, but like women are really expected to hold it together. And I certainly can't make any prescriptions for what other people should feel about that sort of thing. But for me, if I let someone use a word to insult me, I'm just going to feel insulted. If they use it to insult me and I refuse to feel insulted, then, I'm rubber, you're glue kind of effect. And it just defangs the intended insult. And that's, my first book is tacky. This one is sloppy. So I've done that same move twice. And we'll see. We'll see what other insults I can, I guess, do that move with. Incredibly inarticulate way to end this whole situation, but that's where we're at.
Let's give Rax another round of applause. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming out tonight, and thank you to Jamie and Rax for a great event. We're so happy to have you. Please keep the applause going. Like if you're still with us on the YouTube live stream, you can buy a link of the copies of both of these authors' books in the description box below. And if you're here, we have both of their books at the front, so you should turn around and get those in 1 second, because this is how it's going to go down. If you all turn and look at my beautiful coworkers, Amali and Bex, they're pointing to where Rax will be signing. I'm going to walk Rax so calmly down the center of the aisle. And you guys can line up and get your book signed, which is so exciting. And then just be mindful of all your belongings, because we do start to pack up the bookstore to turn it back into a bookstore. And then we have all these bottles at your feet, I'm noticing, not to call you all out, but there is a trash can at the front. So thank you guys so much, and have a great night.